How's it going? Welcome to YEG MS episode number 1. This is the first official episode of the YEG MS podcast. On this episode, besides a lack of vitamin D, is it possible that other solar activity may be the cause of MS? I'll also be talking about something that has absolutely nothing to do with MS. It has to do with people in line paying for things that are ahead of me and holding me up. And lastly, and most importantly, I'll have part 1 of my conversation with Meghan Cooper, a local mother, wife, and MSer. We had an excellent conversation at a coffee shop the other day, and it went long, but in a good way. So I split the conversation into 2 parts, and part 2 will air in YEGMS episode number 2. So stick around for part 1, and hopefully you'll listen to the next episode and stick around for part 2. So I don't know about you, but since I got diagnosed with MS roughly 8 years ago, I've always been very curious about what causes it. And of course, no one can tell you. There's a host of theories out there. So whether it's genetic and based on your family history, or if it's environmental, or if it's a combination of causes, there's a host of theories, but none has been proven correct. Shortly after I got diagnosed and I started looking at diet and supplements and things I could possibly take to improve my quality of life, one of the first hypotheses I came across was the vitamin D hypothesis. For those of you who are not familiar with that, basically it's taking into account there seems to be a correlation between rates of MS and distance from the equator, which would suggest that possibly a lack of sunlight could have could be the reason why we're seeing more MS in northern climates. However, it's not airtight, and it seems to be there's different areas of the world where they're closer to the equator, but we still see MS. And the instances of MS aren't the same in the southern hemisphere as they are in the northern hemisphere. So for the vitamin D hypothesis to be absolutely airtight, you would expect to see far southern latitudes have the same rates of MS as high northern latitudes, which isn't the case. And about a year ago or more, I came across a paper called Geomagnetic Disturbances and Multiple Sclerosis. And the authors of that paper have found a correlation between a person's geomagnetic latitude, which is similar to traditional latitude and longitude. However, geomagnetic latitude it curves. It's like a wave. And they found that people that are living near 60 degrees geomagnetic latitude, that seems to be the sweet spot for MS, and it better ties together differences from the northern to southern hemisphere, and it also seems to tie really well. And where I live in Edmonton is very close to one of those 60-degree lines, so I found that really fascinating. Today I was snooping around and I found a companion paper to the original paper, and I wrote a short post on my blog about it at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. And they were looking at basically solar activity and geomagnetic disturbances from the years of 1990 to 2010 in the UK. And the UK is experiencing, their MS rates are starting to decline. However, they're not in Scotland. And without repeating the entire paper here, basically in Scotland is closer to one of those, because of the curve, because those geomagnetic latitude lines are curved, it happens to be closer to that sweet spot of 60 degrees geomagnetic latitude. And that would explain why rates aren't dropping in Scotland, but they're dropping in the rest of the UK. And what's interesting about the geomagnetic disturbances, I'm just going to start calling them GMDs instead of geomagnetic disturbances, it's a bit less of a mouthful. Anyway, the interesting thing about GMDs is it really also seems to be able to explain differences between the northern and southern hemispheres. Anyway, so if you have MS and you're at all interested in what causes it, I mean, this isn't proven. It's just, it's a paper that's been released, and there's these two gentlemen that have been researching it. But it's fascinating stuff. And one of the things in this follow-up paper that I found really interesting is that they were saying basically if flare-ups and relapses were better documented, so if us as MSers, when we have even a minor flare-up, if we were to have a better reporting structure, they could map that along with solar activity, because I guess these GMDs are actually fairly easy to predict because they're based on solar activity that's been tracked for hundreds of years, and they can actually predict. And what they were saying is, if that relationship exists and they are right, then what could happen is, basically your neurologist or your doctor would be able to forecast the year and know when risky times are approaching, if there's going to be some solar activity that could lead to relapsing. Then they could alter your treatment to basically ward off or give you a better defense against those times of geomagnetic disturbances. So anyway, it's a fascinating read. I will leave the link to the blog post in the paper in the companion blog post to this podcast on ownmultiplesclerosis.com. I would encourage anyone to read it or look into it because it's fascinating stuff. And I just think that can you imagine if your neuro or your doctor had the ability to say, hey, you know what, Sean, from this date to this date next month, we're going to have to alter your treatment, or you need to stay inside, or whatever it is, because that you could be exposed to some magnetic disturbances in our upper atmosphere that could lead to potentially a relapse. I mean, that would be fascinating. So anyway, I highly recommend you check it out. Again, I'll leave it on the blog post that's associated with this podcast, so you can get the link to the papers and you can read it for yourself. Now, this next part is has absolutely nothing to do with MS. It has to do with some mild annoyances that I had today. And when you have your own podcast, what a heck of a platform to be able to vent some some stress, which as an MSer I need to do. Anyway, I was in an electronics store today buying a new webcam, and I went to pay, and the family in front of me, they were buying a case for the mom's iPhone. And it's taking them a while to pay, but anyway, because for whatever reason, it was just taking a while to pay. So they pay, and they're just about to leave the line, and the store's not busy. I'm the only person in line. And as the mom's walking away, she stops and turns to the clerk, who's just about to grab my webcam and ring it in and start the process of me. And without even saying excuse me or anything, she turns to him and says, I need to know, is this case for the iPhone 5? And she's already paid for it. I mean, you'd think you would, before you bring it up to the till, you would think that you would check to make sure you're buying the right case. So the guy at the till's not sure. I mean, I'm sure that it's a big box store, electronics store. I'm sure he's looking at it thinking, and you should see the look on the clerk's face. He's just like, you're kidding? You've already paid for it. But anyway. So it takes him about 2 or 3 minutes to look over the packaging and double check, and the fact that he doesn't have the answer right off the top of his head. I mean, this woman is clearly getting frustrated and mad at him. And what did he do? You brought something up, you rang it through, and he's not responsible for the part of the store you bought it from. So anyway, it turns out it was the right case for her phone. But anyway, she walks away. And doesn't say, thank you to the guy. Doesn't say anything to me like, excuse me, sorry for recutting it online. And then same day, I went for lunch today. And again, it wasn't that busy. It was this little little place near my office that I always go to. Primarily, I always go there because I know the owner, and I know I can get, he knows my dietary preferences, so he makes sure that, there's no gluten and no dairy and stuff, because I'm that guy, right? Anyway, I'm I'm waiting in line. There's one person ahead of me, and didn't know what they were going to order before they walked up, and are doing the whole, okay, I got to read the menu as I'm talking to the person. But this lady, when she was, when she went to pay, apparently when you pay, you have to unload the contents of your purse on the counter. I mean, after she had paid, it took a good minute and a half for her to re-snap and zip and put everything away. These things shouldn't frustrate me. They shouldn't. But man, it was driving me nuts today. It was just absolutely driving me bad. And I know when you're an asset, you're supposed to minimize your stress. So, and that has absolutely nothing to do with MS. But in the last segment, more importantly, and this does have to do with MS, in this next segment is my conversation with Meghan Cooper. I had never met her before she agreed to speak with me, and we had a wonderful conversation that went far longer than I would have thought. And she even apologized, and I said, "Don't," when we were going to leave, and she said, I'm sorry I went so long, I talked too much." And I said, "Absolutely not. This is great. We got, she was very open and very honest. She's very open about her MS and her story with MS. So take a listen. And again, thanks, Meghan, for doing this. But definitely take a listen to this, because I think Meghan's got a lot of great things to say. I'm sitting here with Meghan at a coffee shop in Collingwood. And Meghan, thank you for talking to me and being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And how I start off these talks always is just tell me your story. How did the MS come about in your life?
Oh, goodness. Okay, well, about a month after I had my son, so I have a 4-week-old newborn, I started losing my eyesight. And I was in super denial. I figured it was something because of the labor. It was a 72-hour labor. So I was like, obviously my body did not like that. And then I thought, I had myself convinced that it was because I had a toothache, that I was losing my eyesight in my left eye. That was all. I'm going to go to the dentist and get this fixed. And then it was my sister that actually said, "Meghan, go to the hospital because this could be something really bad." So I went, and I went to the hospital and emergency room, and they looked, and they were like, "Oh yeah, okay, it's optic neuritis." And I went, "Oh, swell, what do I have to do? Do I put an ice pack on my face? What happens now?" And he looked at me and he said, "Well, usually it means that you have MS." And I kind of stopped and I looked at him and I was like, "Well, I don't know what that is." He was like, "Well, it's multiple sclerosis." And I went, "Did you miss the fact that I have a newborn? Because I can't have a disability and a baby at the same time. That's not, that doesn't happen to people. That's not right." And he said, "Well, we're going to send you for an MRI." I said, "Okay." I got a call from a neurologist here in Edmonton, and same thing. He was like, "Okay, well, it looks like it could be MS." And I went, "Again, did you guys miss the point that I have a newborn? You need to operate on my eye and fix it so that I can go back to being a normal person." And the doctor went, "Well, it could be 3 different things. You might have a brain tumor, lupus, or MS." And
So at that point, you're like, "I'll take the MS."
that's exactly what I was like. Well, that's the lesser of the 3, so I'm going to go with MS, because I at least know, a smidgen about that. There was a news anchor that had MS. I know that much. I was like, there's a news anchor in Edmonton that had MS. So after that, I went for my MRI. They put me on a steroid treatment. So I was on that, and it stopped the progression of the blindness, but nobody tells you that steroids are horrifying. I had no idea. Going in there like, "Okay, we're going to give you Solumedrol." Solumedrol? And nobody says when you take Solumedrol, you get this horrible, awful metallic taste in your mouth for months. Nothing tastes good.
It's that
I'm like, whoa, what is going on with my taste buds? And you're putting steroids into my body. Does this mean that I'm going to...
Is that the one where
Yeah.
you're on the drip, right?
You're on the drip.
Yeah,
It's an
I had that,
intravenous.
yeah.
I was like, I have this happening. Does this mean I'm going to get a six-pack out of the deal? Like, this is steroids.
No.
And that nurse said, wrong steroids. I was like, well, obviously there's no bonus situation to this. So
There rarely is.
yeah, right? And so it was a bit to swallow, but as soon as they said, you know, you're not going to die, I was like, okay, it's not like I have a month to live and, you know, I'm not going to get to see my kid grow up. I figured, you know, well, I've been through other stuff before in my lifetime. I can handle this. I can do it. All right, so what's the plan? What do we do? You know, and the doctor said, well, we'll put you on a treatment plan. And I said, all right, let's get that going. And
what
again,
they put you on?
I was on Rebif
Okay, so
for 5 years. And then I ended up developing an antibody for it. So it was no longer working.
It wasn't working?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they switched me over to Copaxone, which I'm on now. And so far, it's fine. You know, I don't have any problems with it. But it, like, nobody told me the other things that you could do to improve your quality of life. So I had to kind of figure that out on my own, which was fine. I didn't mind. But it was a lifestyle change that I wasn't prepared for.
That's a really interesting point. So when you were diagnosed, it was pretty much the treatment was take this drug.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then take this drug, and then you're going to take this antidepressant to ensure that you don't try to commit suicide and you get super depressed. And you're going to take birth control now because you can't get pregnant while you're on these medications because it's unhealthy. We don't know what it's going to do to a baby, you know. And you're going to more than likely have to take a sleeping pill and all of these things. You have to stop doing things or stop taking or doing things that you would enjoy, right? Like, you don't drink too much caffeine, no more junk food, no more drinking, no more smoking, because I was a smoker, I still am, I'm not gonna lie about that, but it was
I'm a reformed smoker.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And it was, you know, here you get this, and here's your treatment, and now we're going to take everything else away that made your life comfortable and what you were used to, and we're going to flip that around. You're going to go ass over tea kettle now because there's everything that needs to change. And I wasn't willing to do that. I was not willing to take part in that. I said, I'll take the treatment, I will take the medication that you need me to take, but as for everything else, I'm going to live my life as I normally would, just because I'm not ready for that extreme change yet. I have a newborn that I still have to take care of. You know, so my daily meals were coffee and yogurt and a banana, you know, coffee being the main, that was my main goal, was to have as much coffee to help me function. Telling me I couldn't have caffeine, that wasn't going to happen. No way. So, I mean, it was a challenge. It still is, especially eating healthy. I'm not the best at that. I really enjoy junk food. Really enjoy junk food. I am, you know, my 7-year-old, his favorite food is McDonald's. So I'm not going to lie, we go to McDonald's and we eat there when it's his treat meal for, you know, good grades or whatever. But for me, all of it has been in proportion, right? Like, it's not, you can't be excessive about anything anymore.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah. It's not, you can't sit down and eat, you know, junk for a week and expect to feel amazing. No, it's going to feel like garbage just like any other normal human being. But for me, I just have to be a little bit more careful about it.
Yeah, I know for me, when, you know, obviously leading up, I was telling you about the run before we started recording. Leading up to that, my diet was pretty clean. I finished that run, and man, it went off the rails. Where, you know, because that was a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I'm now committed to getting back on track.
Okay.
I think it was just sort of you know, when you're training for something like that, you have to give up so much.
Yep.
So it was finally over, and it was like, bring it on. You know, just bring it on.
I'm going to see Five Guys every night.
Yeah. Chicken wings for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
So I understand it. So lifestyle-wise, have you made modifications? Have you?
I have. My trigger with MS, which is different for everybody, but mine has been stress. If I am under an undue amount of stress, then my MS is going to flare up, and it's going to be really angry. And it means that we always joke about I will walk around like I have a piano tied to me because my body feels like it weighs 800 pounds, and I'm not a big person. So, for me, it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, definitely, to have to make those changes because I'm stubborn. I don't want to make changes. I like my life. I'm happy in my very comfortable, sedentary life. What are you talking
You're
about?
in your bubble. Right?
I am in my bubble, and you want to break my bubble, and I'm mad at you for breaking my bubble.
Yeah.
So, I've made healthy changes. I have reduced my stress level a lot, but I mean, we're humans. There's going to be stress no matter what you do, no matter what job you're in, no matter how old your kids are. Your life is stressful, and it's part of being a person living in a city, I think.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point with stress. And that's not the first time in doing these interviews I've heard that.
Yeah.
That it seems to be a trigger for everyone.
Yeah.
You have to, and I know for me, if I let myself get run down, that's when I'm going to have an attack. I had a mild flare-up about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I think what it was is, doing the run, then 2 weeks later doing the bike tour, and then the Monday or the week after the bike tour, I had to get on a plane and I had to travel for business, and I got really, really just not enough sleep.
Yeah.
How do you find that with sleep? Like if you don't get enough, is that a trigger too?
Oh yeah, I have to have between 10 and 14 hours of sleep a day. And
so you're like most of us. Yeah.
Oh, I am, and I'm in bed at 7 o'clock at night, or 8 o'clock at night. My friends know, like, Megan doesn't go out to the club anymore, unless I get a lead up of like a month, and then I can sleep longer to prepare for going out. But no, I have to sleep a lot, and that's okay because I really enjoy napping.
I think napping is an MSer's best friend.
I think it is. I love it. It takes away a lot of my irritability. Like if I'm just growly, then I'm like, okay, I need to go and have a nap or, something similar, go rest for a bit, which, I'm not going to complain about at all.
Yeah.
I quite enjoy that ability.
And how do you have a 7-year-old, and did you stop having kids after the 7-year-old?
I did.
Okay. Does the 7-year-old know what's going on with Mummy?
Yep. Most definitely. We got him a book. It's Mummy and MS, and, the days that Mummy isn't feeling so good that, we have a little sign on next to my bed that I can turn, say, it's a bad MS day or it's a good MS day, and he knows, bad MS days, this is what has to happen, and good MS days, this is what we can do. So instead of going to the park, we'll sit and read a book or play a video game together, on the bad ones, and on the good MS days, we'll go swimming and go to the park and all those good things. But he's quite understanding about it.
So, strong family life then is probably a big help.
Yeah, it is most definitely. He's my reason for surviving it.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
How that works. Like, I didn't meet my wife or have children until after I got diagnosed.
Okay.
Which, is kind of backwards, I suppose. But my kids are young enough right now. They have no idea.
Right.
I don't. My oldest is 4, and I think that I don't even know the concept of disease. Like, you could explain it to her and she'd understand what you were saying, but I don't think she'd really understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you were saying before we started recording that you got involved in a larger MS group, and there was a Facebook page.
Yep.
Just tell us a little bit about
that. It's a group called Young Adults in Edmonton with MS, or something along those lines. Basically, it's for the newly diagnosed people that are under the age of 45, because it has been an older person's disease for so long that those of us that are young and getting diagnosed, we're kind of left in this, we see all the kind of older generation, and they're all in wheelchairs and scooters and walkers, and they have feeding tubes, and they have colostomy bags, and, you see this and you're like, that is not me. That can't be me in a year, or 2 years. There's no way I can live my life like that. So we started with the MS group, we started, or the MS Society, we started a group basically geared towards those of us that are younger and still married and have little kids to say, you know, what are you doing? Are you trying this? And who's experiencing this? And basically just kind of standing together to say, you know, we're not alone. We're still young. We can still do things. We're not destined to a life of, you know, being wheelchair bound. We're going to be active and we're going to be okay. We just have to, you know, modify it so that we can still stay healthy, right?
You know, again, you touched on something I think is really important. When you look ahead, I know for me, the thing that I really hate about the disease is the not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you get diagnosed, and we were talking about this, you kind of, well, you got MS, take this drug.
Yeah.
You know, have a good one.
Yep.
See you later. And all they can tell you is this might happen.
Yeah.
You may end up in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Or you might not.
Yeah.
Or this may be as bad as it gets for you. Or it
Yeah.
might be a lot worse than 6 months or 6 years or,
Yeah.
you know, 25 years, whatever
Yeah.
it is. That, I mean, for years, that was the hardest thing for me dealing with. I shied away from relationships. I shied away from everything because I just didn't know.
Yeah.
You know? I just thought, well, I'll live my life as best I can right now.
Yeah, you don't want to involve anybody else if you're
No.
going to go downhill.
Right.
Right?
So, how do you handle that?
Oh, Lord. I call it my snowflake disease, because I never know what I'm going to wake up with, you know. Every day is different.
Yeah.
No, it's... I cope with... And people are going to probably take not kindly to it, but my doctor said, you know, in 35 years, when you're 60, whatever,
Yeah.
70, you will possibly be in a wheelchair. I'm like, I am down with that. I have lived to be 70 years old. Somebody else can push me around for the remainder of my
Well,
days.
hey, a lot of people who are 70 who
I
don't
can
have
make
MS
it.
end
That's
up in
right.
wheelchairs, right?
So I was like, you know, I use my sense of humor. I'm exceptionally positive about it. Like when I got diagnosed, it took me about a month to come to terms with being diagnosed, but
Only a month?
Yep.
It
Yeah.
took me years.
I didn't give myself the time.
I guess not with a newborn.
No, I was like, I have to get on the ball and I got to do it quick. I would have loved to stay in bed and pull the covers up around my face and been like, fine, I'm just going to lay here and
Yeah.
the world can go on without me. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. This is a blessing for me because I lived my life previous to being married and have my son very fast. I was that girl that was, you know, oh, we're going out this weekend, or we're going out every day this week. Okay, I'm down. Let's go. Let's do it. You know, I rode motorcycles. I hung out with the wrong crowd. I lived my life on the edge of, you know, everything. I wanted to be a part of whatever was happening, anything exciting. And then I had my son, and it was kind of like the universe said, you had your fun. Now it's time to slow down. And we're going to make you slow down.
Is it fair to say, and I have my own personal take on this, but I'm going to ask you, is it fair to say that in a strange way, getting diagnosed was a bit of a blessing?
It was, 100%. I will stand by it, that it was my wake-up call to say, you have a baby, and you're going to miss so many things if you continue living your life so quickly. You need to slow down so that you can watch him while he's sleeping. You can make sure that you're there for his first steps, or the first time he crawls, or when he falls down. And having MS gave me that ability to say, no, you know what? I don't feel like it. I don't want to go out. I want to stay at home with my son. You know, and people understood that. And so it gave me the strength to be able to put my son first.
Yeah, I just, you know, when I got diagnosed, I was probably 200. I was probably pushing 270.
Okay.
You know, I'm still over 200 pounds. I'm always going to be. I'm just a big guy.
Yeah.
Right. But even when I did my run, I was about 215. You remember when I told you my diet went off the rails? I'm back around 222. A month and a half later. But like I said, I mean, I think it was just such a relief to get it over with. But I know for myself that I don't think unless, because I was the same as you. I worked in that industry. I mean, I was a partner in a restaurant. I had a little cafe. A lot of my friends were in that industry, bartenders and this and that. And you know, it wasn't uncommon for me to be out till 2 or 3 a.m. on a Wednesday night. When most people are, you know, have to be up at 7.
Yeah.
You know, but when the diagnosis came, I had to, you know, and it didn't happen easily, and I was fighting it. I mean, I'm still fighting it some days. Where, but without it coming, I don't know that I would have ever calmed down enough. That when even if I would have met my wife, I don't know if I would have been tame enough to see what I had.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. To realize the good.
Yeah. And you know, because we talked about family life, and I just think it's so important to have a partner that at home who understands and can give you that time sometimes when you need it.
Yeah.
Or those days where you can't go to work or whatever it is. Like.
Yeah.
Do you work?
Oh yeah, full time. No.
Full time with a 7-year-old. All right. Yeah. And now. Did you ever feel like after you got diagnosed, did you ever feel that I don't want people to know? Like, were you ever scared to let the cat out of the bag?
No, I was shouting it from the rooftops.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a person that will hide or feel ashamed, or I'm not worried about people looking at me funny. I'm not that type of person. So when I was diagnosed, everyone knew. That was so what do you do? Well, not only do I work in the pipeline, I also am surviving MS. So, you know, here's handshake.
What do you do in the outfield?
Oh, I used to be a safety officer.
Oh, wow.
But I work in construction now. I just work in an office. You know, no. Oh, I couldn't imagine working out in the field.
Well, the stress, right? Like my neighbor's an all-field guy, and it sounds a lot more stressful than my world.
Yeah, it was, most definitely. And you had to be on the ball for so many things, and I just don't want to do that anymore. I'm happy in my comfy little life with my son, and I don't want to have to worry about somebody else getting injured or whatever. Yeah.
So, when you look ahead in your life,
yeah,
what does that look like? Do you plan things around MS, or do you just plan things like you would normally, and just say, you know what, it is going to be what it's going to be. What it's going to be. I got to plan my life the way I'm going to plan my life.
I wish I could say that I plan my life day to day, but I don't. I have prepared for the worst if it happens in the next little while. I plan my day-to-day life around, you know, whatever, just like a normal person. You know, you get up, you go to work, you feed the kids, get them to school, get them to camp, whatever. But I've also made arrangements that if I do go downhill quickly, that I have my village that will step in and take care of Lucas and my husband. I have friends that, like one of my girlfriends, she's in charge of sports. So she will have him in, you know, soccer and volleyball and tennis and all of those. She'll be the one that takes on that part of it. I have another friend that will take on the tutoring side of Lucas. I have another friend that will take on the his spiritual well-being. You know, if I can't.
Are you a member of a specific faith, or
No.
is it just general?
Just general.
Okay.
Just general, like, know that there's a higher power looking out for him. You know, even though I can't anymore, there is still people that will love him and take care of him. I will love him until the day I die, but I need people around that will be able to verbalize that for him if I can't. So I've prepared for the worst. My husband hates it. He's like, that is such a black, horrible thing such a negative energy. Why would you want to do that? And I said, because I need to know. I need to know that you guys will be taken care of, that somebody will come in when you don't feel like it to make dinner. And help out around the house, do some cleaning, if I can. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. But
how's is there been a progression of your symptoms?
No, nothing.
So it's just this, like, do you have any, like neuritis in your finger? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's just like the normal stuff that kind of comes along with MS. You get fatigue and you get the tinglies in your fingers and your feet, and when you're tired, your eyesight goes a little wonky. Or when I get exceptionally tired, eating is the last thing on my mind, so I survive on smoothies.
Really?
Oh, God.
When you get that tired, you can't eat?
I can't eat. The physical thought and action of bringing a fork to my mouth is exhausting.
I wish I had that problem.
No, you don't, because smoothies get really old really fast.
No, that's fascinating. That one I haven't heard yet.
Oh, yeah, it's exhausting. If I've had a week where I've had to go balls to the wall with work and Lucas and my husband and just life in general, whatever has happened. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, now you have to have something to eat. No. Can I drink it? Can I sip it through a straw? Because if I can, that's what I'm doing. You want me to eat chicken and potato? Not gonna happen. No way. That means that I have to chew? Oh, no, I don't want to chew.
Wow.
Oh, see, that's the thing that nobody ever tells you. They tell you the big and scary, and you may end up in a wheelchair, and you may end up with a pee bag, and you're not going to be able in a feeding tube, all these big and scary things that you kind of are taken aback by, like, what? I don't want to be bedridden and not be able to bathe myself. They don't tell you about the little itty bitty things like, oh yeah, doing up buttons when you can't feel your fingertips. That's going to be really entertaining. Buy things with zippers,
Yeah, the odd,
Or
I'm fairly okay with, but the odd time I have to, like, there'll be a button, I just look around,
can you get this for me, Or I have to get my son to do it. Those little itty bitty zippers, oh, those are the bane of my existence on dresses. Oh, I have to get my son to do up the zipper. I'm like, come on, this is not happening right now. I'm trying to look smoking hot for a party, and I have to wear a dress with a zipper. That's super. Nobody tells you that doing your hair when you can't feel your hands.
See, I'm bald, so I don't have that problem.
Yeah, I have been tempted to shave my head so many times. I'm like, just cut it off. I don't want to do it, So you have to call in your people, and I call in my sister or my girlfriends, and I'm like, okay, I can't do my hair today, or I'll go into work early and I'll have my boss do my hair so I look presentable. Relearning how to.
Is your work really supportive?
She is. Her mother has MS, so she understands what it's like. So she's very, very good. I am very lucky to have a boss like I do. I fear that if I kept my old job in the pipeline, that the men that I worked with might have had a bit more of issues with, coming in and me saying, can you just put my hair in a ponytail? Can you braid it for me?
Yeah.
Or something. Relearning to do your makeup, because I got optic neuritis, so I was blind in one eye. Having to relearn to do your makeup with only one working eye.
I had same thing with me, left eye. Yeah, same thing.
And I was like, I have to try and figure out how to do my makeup with one eye open now. It healed itself, thankfully, over the years. When I'm tired, my left eye will definitely go. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not working anymore.
The only thing I notice in my eyesight now is if I look too far to the right, it's just not quite right.
Yeah, there's a little blur. There's a little something happening over there.
but it's not like I look that extreme right very often.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make much of a difference.
Yeah.
Now, you take your Capaxone.
Yep.
Do you supplement with anything, or just the Capaxone?
No, I have vitamins that I take.
Okay.
Most definitely. I mean, as soon as they said, if you up your vitamin D, your day could go a whole lot better. Oh, all right. So I have these awesome little vitamin D chews that taste like chocolate. So I got my chocolate fix and some vitamin D. Yeah. I'm happy. I have a really hard time swallowing pills, so everything I have is chewable. So I have a chewable multivitamin, like my son. We take our little Phineas and Ferb vitamins in the morning together, and it works. enjoy it.
And since you got diagnosed, have you had any really bad flare-ups, or they've been more just the
Well, I've lost my eyesight twice in the past 8 years. So there was the initial eyesight, and then 2 more times after that. Other than that, I've been really, really lucky, and I count my blessings every day for that. That it's nothing horrible. You know, it's not like I've ever been paralyzed. I have friends that have been, and I couldn't even imagine what that would be like. I think it's just the little things, the little sand in your shorts that are really annoying, right? Like, I don't know if it's something that you talk about, but being able to go to the bathroom, or having to go to the bathroom way too much.
It's like constant.
Constantly. You constantly have to go to the bathroom. Like, really? Again? I just had a sip of water, and I got... Oh. Or it goes I have friends that it goes the whole other way, and they can't. And I'm like, why? It's annoying. It's not painful or, like, debilitating. It's just really aggravating. Like, that's some...
Especially when you're having a really good sleep.
Right? And you have to wake up.
You're kind of half awake because you know you have to go, and you're thinking, oh, come on.
Just a couple more hours. Just a couple more. Come on.
And I find for me, I can go about 5 hours of straight sleep. Then I'll have to get up and pee.
Yeah.
Then I can sleep for about another 2 hours.
Then you have to get up and pee again.
And then it's just like...
You might as well stay up after that.
And then I'm like, all right, well, that was nice.
Yep. Thanks. That was good. I miss sleeping in.
Yeah.
I miss sleeping in because everybody's like, oh, Lucas is old enough now. You can totally sleep in. I was like, I wish I could, but my bladder wakes me up. And I have to get up. So, my husband laughs at me and he is like, up again? Shut up.
Yeah, I would almost be okay with like a home catheter system that I could just pop in at night and I could just sleep for...
I loved having my C-section and I had to have a catheter. I was like, I don't have to get up to pee. I'm the laziest person on the planet. If I don't have to get up to do something, I won't. I'm like, we just laid that in. I know that some people will be like, that's the worst thing in the world, and probably after about a week of having it, I would be like, I'm done. But sometimes after, peeing...
But just to be able to sleep 10 hours in a row, like that would be such a magical event.
It really would be.
You know?
Oh, that would be lovely.
Like
that's on my bucket list now.
Well, I was even, because it's been so hot lately, we have a bed down in the basement, and I slept there one night, because I don't know how you would with temperature, but I just can't. Like, it gets to a certain temperature, and I can't sleep, and we have AC in the room, but my wife's a very cold person, so we shut it off. So, otherwise, she's like under 6 blankets, and she's got a toque on, and it's the middle of summer. So, it's just easier for me to go downstairs and sleep, because it's nice and cool down there, and I don't mind. And there was one night where my daughter's old potty was sitting there. And it was not far from the bed, and I thought, that's way closer to the bathroom. I didn't, but it's...
It's so tempting. You have to really, sit and... a normal human being would be like, no way, that's gross. But for those of us that have to go every 15 minutes, it's like, oh, yeah, but that's really close. That's really... I'll stop being an adult for 5 minutes just so I can go on the kids' potty.
Well, we're sitting in a coffee shop right now, and normally I don't drink coffee. I normally drink tea. Okay. But I didn't have tea because if I think it's because it's warm fluid.
You have to pee.
And because we were going to have this conversation, I thought, you know what? I'm not doing it.
You can stop to go to the bathroom anytime.
Well, okay, right now, I'm just saying, I didn't want to have to keep pausing.
Yeah, gotta go again.
Because once the floodgates are open,
I know. You break the seal, you're done.
So, have you, other than the MS group that you, with the Facebook page, have you gone to any, meetings of MS people, where you actually meet?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we used to meet at the very beginning for about 3 years. We used to meet every month. And then we went on couples retreats together through the MS Society.
No way, really?
Yeah. Yeah, so, and then there's a thing for a retreat for your caregivers to get away and relax and stuff like that the MS Society puts on. I don't know if they still do, but they did. So we would meet for that, and I developed really close friends, and I'm still friends with them to this day. We keep in touch, we phone, we text. If we can get together, we will. But, everybody has busy lives, and then adding MS on top of it.
So meeting and talking with other MSers, and not necessarily in a format like this where,
No.
It's different, but when it's just like, you're kicking around ideas and that, what does that do for you?
It depends. Sometimes I find it exhausting.
Really?
Yeah, it is, because I pick up other people's energy really quickly. So if other people are down and they're feeling like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, I have a really hard time, because me personally, my ability to stay okay is my ability to stay positive.
Yeah, I don't do pity parties myself. I can't do it. If that's what you need, you're talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah, I can't do it. So I found it tiring for a while, and then I just kind of pulled away for a little bit. But then I found I'm a comedian. That if you're gonna be down in the dumps, I'm gonna pull out a stand-up routine out of my pants and be like, no, we're turning this around right freaking now, because I am not gonna sit here and mope, because I can do that at home. I want to be out to enjoy other people and be able to have other people that understand what I'm going through. So.
How did your not your your immediate family, but like your mom, dad, and that? How did they react when they found out?
They reacted worse than I did. They were. It was. They had a really hard time coming to grips with the fact that it wasn't going to be the same. That I was going to have to live a different lifestyle, that they thought that for sure I was on death row. This was a sentence that nobody could fix, and, they had to all prepare and huddle around me, and, are you okay? Okay, well, don't get up too fast. You might fall down. I'm like, I'm still me,
And if I fall, I fall.
If I fall down, I'll be able to clean under the couch. Leave me alone. So, they had a really hard time coming to terms, especially my sister. She's one of my best friends, and I love her to death, but she was so scared that it was, that I wasn't going to be okay. Now she's like, whatever, you're fine. I'll come and help you when you need, a couple months ago I had to have help with, just getting my house back in order. The laundry had piled up, the dishes were going crazy, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. So my husband called in my sister and was like, okay, we're calling in the troops. Everybody come pitch in. So she was like, now I get to help you. Yay!
And do you find it, I remember when I first got diagnosed, anytime, once my extended family got to know, and our family, friends and that, every time I would go to a function, like a birthday or something, I'd always get the, oh hey Sean, the little head tilt. How you doing? That drove me nuts, to the point where I actually wrote an email to every family member where I had their email address. I go, look, don't do the head tilt. I don't need your pity.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm probably doing better than most of you.
Yep.
Right?
I'm not dying.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Because it would just, when they get that little head tilt where they kind of,
Yeah. How are you? Do you need to sit down?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. And you just kind of go.
They look at you like you've lost a family member, or you had an amputation or something?
Yeah. Now, do you find that as the years have gone by, that's improved, where people are now back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever anybody new to the family finds out, they're they'll. My nieces are hilarious. They introduce him. Oh, this is my Auntie Megan. She has MS. And I'm like, it doesn't define who I am. Yes, I have it, but I make it look good.
Yeah.
Back off. And so I get, new people that are like, oh, really? My MS and I are quite close. We've come to good terms of our relationship.
I always look at it as the gorilla in the room. I don't bother him, and he doesn't bother me.
Yeah, don't poke the sleeping bear.
Yeah, just leave him alone, and he's there. He knows he's there. He knows I'm here, but he leaves me alone and I leave him alone, everybody's good.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was an adjustment, but, it was something that you learn to deal with. And I think that for anything that I had to cope with, like if that was kind of in my cards to have a disability, MS it's a pretty decent one for me to have. I don't have the horrible MS where I'm in a wheelchair and I'm in pain and I look and I feel for the people that have to cope with that. I really do. But I was damn lucky that I don't have that. So it could be much worse.
I know what you mean. When I did that run, when I came into Camrose, at the finish line, the local booster club from the MS Society was there.
Yeah.
And there was, 4 or 5 people in their Rascals, those automated carts that have to drive around in. And here I just finished running for 12 hours, right? And I thought to myself, I remember really thinking, and I was exhausted, I remember thinking to myself, like, they have the same thing as me. Like, that literally could be me someday.
Yeah.
And it really, for me, it puts it in perspective. You go, well, it sucks.
Yeah.
But I feel really fortunate that I'm not at that point.
Right.
I could be at some point in time.
Well, yeah.
But I'm not now. So I just try to make the best of it while I'm still up and around. And the nicest compliment I've ever received is when friends of mine say, I always forget that you have.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't look sick.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks. I'll try harder.
Yeah.
Maybe, would that make you feel better?
Here, give me that knife,
Yeah.
Jab it in your finger or something. Does that work for you?
Do you want me to start walking around with a cane? Is that going to make you feel a little bit better?
When we first started talking here, you had said when they said MS, and how much did you know about it?
Nothing.
Yeah, me too. And I find that I remember I was watching an episode of The Family Guy. This is a couple years ago. I don't really watch that show, but I happened to be watching it. And there was a guy across the street, and he had a cane in each hand. Like those ones that go up to your elbow, those type things. And I know one of the characters said something to him, and the guy looks back at him, and in kind of a slow voice says, well, I have MS. And I had MS at this point. I'm like, that's what you think it is?
That's not me.
Like, as bad as some of the caricatures are in that show, I went, well, that's not fair to millions of people.
Yeah.
And I rarely get offended about anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But that one kind of took me because for so many people, cultural references like that become, well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I heard it referenced in The Family Guy, and the guy had 2 canes, and that must be what it is. And they don't understand it runs from, you could meet me and never know.
Yeah.
Like when we first sat down, we didn't know each other, and you asked me, you went, oh, you have MS too? And I went,
yeah.
Right?
No, you can't tell.
You wouldn't have known from,
No.
Right? From that all the way up to people who are completely bedridden.
Yeah.
Right? And I know when I got diagnosed, I'd heard of it. I had an aunt with it, but she always seemed like I'd remembered her. I didn't really notice anything.
Yeah.
So, but I knew it was serious at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I did say to a cousin of mine, I think it was last summer, like if I'm going to get one of the big diseases, relapsing remitting MS, sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign
I can
me
dig
up.
it.
Yeah.
So if that's in my cards, all right, I'll take it. When the doctor said it could be a brain tumor, I was like, oh, no, it couldn't. We're going to go with the one that's easiest to deal with. And MS, I think, is kind of on that track, especially relapsing remitting. It's kind of the lowest form of having MS, I think.
Well, my neurologist, his thing was, Sean, what we're going to try and do is make sure that the disability doesn't progress.
Yeah.
So the symptoms you have now, you're going to have them.
Yeah.
But we don't want it to get worse.
Yeah.
And I went, I live a really normal life right now. Sure.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Let's just continue on that path. I remember, my realizing what I had and it almost being a relief. Because my husband was very much, you're not going on the internet to research this. You are not reading anything. You are not, no, because you're gonna scare the life out of yourself. Forget it. So he went on, and he started reading, and he gave me kind of the basics of what I needed to know. You
The
know?
Coles Notes
This,
version,
yeah,
yeah.
this is kind of the what it is and what it's doing, right? Just the disease itself. I was like, well, I know it's out there. It's got a name, so obviously it's bad. You know, doctors are like, ooh, you have MS. Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
You can't get insurance anymore.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I was like, oh, I can't be a donor. All right, that's swell.
Because what?
I'm gonna donate my
Yeah.
my kidney, and you may just get MS with it. Maybe.
Well, I had to have a medical like 2 weeks ago because I'm trying to get life insurance again.
Okay. Have fun with that.
I keep telling it's through my investment guy, and I keep telling him like we can keep trying.
Yeah.
Like I want to buy the insurance from you.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to sell it to me though. But you can send a nurse by my house,
Yep.
and the funny thing is because I just did that run, my resting heart rate's 50. My
Yeah.
blood pressure is really like just. He's doing all my vitals. He's like, this is fantastic. For a guy your age, Jesus, you're in really good shape. And I'm like, well, I just ran an ultra marathon.
Yep.
Like, my heart almost doesn't beat anymore. It's so slow. And so I would have better vitals than 95% of
Yeah.
the population. And then it came to the line in his form he's got to fill out. He's like, do you have any neurological disorders? I'm like, yes, I do.
Yep. And there it goes.
And I went, so you got to check that off, and that pretty much guarantees that I'm not going to
You're
get
gonna get declined. Yeah.
And he was a third party. Like he can't work for the insurance company. He can't work for my girl to be
Yep.
impartial or whatever. And he said, "You've obviously tried this before." I said, "I think you're number 3. I mean, I know how this goes.
Yep.
You know, they see MS and because of the running and stuff, odds are pretty good. I'm going to live a long time. I might be on a wheel, but I'm not going to die.
No.
Right? So, I mean, I think I'm a really safe bet for these
Yeah.
people. And you should look, if you took that off the thing, I'd probably get extraordinarily cheap insurance because, like, oh, this guy's not going to die anytime
Yeah.
soon. He's got no nicotine in his system, you know, like, right?
Yep.
But no, I know, like, I haven't heard back, and that means that,
You didn't get it.
no.
Yeah. Or that they're like, oh, we don't want to give him the bad news. It's like, really, it's not bad news. I already knew it was coming.
Well, I think it's funny. Every time he
Yeah.
wants to try for life insurance, I honest to God think it's funny because I just look at him and I go, all right,
Yep. Some paperwork for you, dude.
yeah.
I don't know what you want me to do.
Well, he keeps telling me, well, no, you'll just have to pay more. I'm like, oh, I'm sure. I'm sure if they approve me.
Yeah.
The life insurance that would cost a normal person $30 or $40 a month, for me, it's probably going to be $300.
Yeah, exactly, right?
But they still won't give it to me.
Nope.
So
Not
you've
at all.
obviously gone through that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think it's kind of entertaining because I'm like, just stop trying. Stop trying. It's not worth it. You know, like you're causing yourself more grief by sending in the paperwork and filling it all out. They're not going to say yes, you know, but
Well, some person in a cubicle that gets that application form is just going to go through it. And if they approve it and their boss finds out,
yep.
right?
No, you're in trouble. I think it's hilarious when, for government and the tax forms, you know, you have to fill out the disability tax credit every 7 years or whatever. And I didn't realize that mine was up. So I get a phone call for the government. You need to fill out a new tax form. And I was on the phone and I went, why? She was like, well, your 7 years is expired. I said, well, you didn't come up with a cure. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, MS, still got it. I don't know why I have to fill out a new piece of paper for it. It's not like you guys, you know, released this magical cure that made it go away. And she was like, oh, well, you still have to fill out the... I was like, I'll fill out the form, but I'm just saying, it's not going anywhere.
It's like if you were born with 4 fingers and you got a tax credit for it. And they said, you know, because you were born with four fingers, you have to reapply every 3 years.
Yeah.
And I would just look at the person like, do you think I grew one?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to grow back. Yeah. So I find it very comical that people are, you know, there's still that kind of blanket little bit of ignorance there. Like, no, it's not going anywhere. It's not cured. I mean, research is great. That's awesome.
Here's a tip for people listening to this that have MS that I just recently discovered. If you currently only have to renew your driver's license every 5 years, the worst thing you can say when you're when you're renewing your license is mention that you have MS, because then all of a sudden they will. I've had MS now for 8.5 years.
Yeah.
Right? So I've already gone through one cycle of licenses, and I can just reapply for 5 years. I happened to slip out the last time I was there that I had MS, and then all of a sudden now I have to reapply for my license every year.
Yeah. Don't tell them that you haven't.
Yeah, because you don't have to.
You don't have to. It's not on your, it's not a requirement. Don't say anything.
Yeah, because it's just a pain, a real giant pain. So what I ended up having to do is I was talking to my neuro about it, and he said, "Oh, I can." He's just changed. I used to get a twice-a-year checkup.
Yeah.
He said, "Sean, you're doing really, really good. Like your tests are really, really good. Da, 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 da. We're going to move you to an annual checkup."
Okay.
And he's like, he wrote a letter that I had to submit to them.
Yeah.
Saying, "No, he's fine."
He's fine.
So now I'm back. Now I have to go and take this, and I'm in the process of doing that. I have to take the letter back saying I'm back on the 5-year plan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because it's so annoying. Like every year, like, oh geez, my license is going to expire like a month and a half.
Oh yeah, and it's just one more thing that you have to worry about. It's like, come on, really? Like there's, I don't mean to insult all of the 80-year-old drivers out there, but there are some folks out there that shouldn't be driving, and they get their license every 5 years. And
That's
it's
true.
like you drive 30 kilometers everywhere you go.
You can be 80 and be on the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and you shouldn't be.
And just because I happened to slip up the line, even right after I said it, I went, oh.
Can I take that back?
Because all of a sudden the drawer opens and another form comes out. I'm like, oh, no. And so there's a tip for you. Don't ever mention that you have MS when you're doing anything with your license.
Don't do it. It's bad.
And that was part 1 of my conversation with Meghan Cooper. Meghan, if you're listening, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and speak with me and being so open about your story. For those of you who are listening, part 2 of my conversation with Meghan will be available 2 Thursdays from now when I upload the next episode of YEG MS. For anyone out there who would like to get a hold of me, you can email me anytime at Sean, S-E-A-N, at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. That's O-W-N, N as in Norman, multiplesclerosis.com. You can also find me on Twitter. My handle is at ownms.com1. You can also check out my website at www.ownmultiplesclerosis.com. You can also have a look at the webpage for the Really Long Run, and that's www.reallylongruntoendms.ca. And I'd be happy to hear from you. If you would like to be a guest on the show and share your story, send me an email, and we'll have you on. You can be someone with MS, a caregiver, a family member. I welcome speaking to anyone who has any relationship to MS. So that's it for now, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks' time.